This 5-star makes me wonder if any other book has ever actually been 5 stars. Good morning and welcome to day 1 of a series that I have not decided the name on yet, but basically, hi, I'm Anna and I'm a 23-year-old living in Atlanta, working as a social worker. You probably know all of that if you've watched my videos before, but today is day 1 of 7 days in a row that I am posting and I am so super excited for it. I think lots of times there's like a little lag in content at the end of December since we have Vlogmas in the beginning and then it ends, and then lots of times people kind of take off before the new year. And since I didn't do Vlogmas this year, I was like, what could I do? What could I do? How about a little ring in the new year series, I suppose, of daily uploads? And today's day 1. As you know, if you read the title, looked at the thumbnail, today we're talking about the best books of 2023, in my opinion, aka top books that I read in 2023, best recommendations that I can give you for books. Reading is such a fun hobby of mine that I really love and I really enjoy, and I know lots of times people ask for recommendations and now I can just send them to this video. I did make one for last year over on my little booktube channel that I have not kept up with, but I had 10 books back then and I have 10 books now that I'm excited to tell you about. The little asterisk, the little caveat here is that I do not have actually any of them in person with me. One, because I'm an avid user of my public library, and so quite a few of these were library books when I read them. 2, the ones that I did read, I have like now given away because I loved them so much that I'm trying to get like other people to read them. So before I get into my top books of the year though, comment your best book, your favorite book that you read this year, so that I know and I can read it, but then also so that people watching this video can get all sorts of different recommendations as we head into the new year as readers. The first book I'm talking about is one that I absolutely loved, absolutely ate up, absolutely flew through, and it is The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. It was Emma's first summer away from home. She made friends, she played games, she learned how to lie. But then 3 of her friends go missing in the middle of the night. They went into the woods and never returned. Now, 15 years later, Emma has been asked to go back to the newly reopened Camp Nightingale. She likes to think that she's laying old ghosts to rest, but really she's returning to the scene of a crime. It's summer camp, it's spooky. It's sort of the like Pretty Little Liars vibe of like Mean Girls with a horrific twist. It kept me so hooked the entire way through, and the ending is something I never would have guessed. And when you've already reached that twist and already have that feeling, it just hits you with something new. This book will be perfect if you're looking for something fast-paced, if you're looking to get out of a reading slump, if you're looking for something that kind of keeps you on your toes, maybe makes you feel a little nervous, a little scared, but not too bad. And especially if you're looking for a wonderful summer camp atmosphere. Number 2 is actually 2 books, but I'm putting them together because they go together in a series. Beartown by Frederick Bachman, and the second one, Us Against You by Frederick Bachman. People say Beartown is finished. A tiny community nestled deep in the forest, it is slowly losing ground to the ever-encroaching trees. But down by the lake stands an old ice rink built generations ago by working men who founded this town. And in that ice rink is the reason that people in Beartown believe tomorrow will be better than today. Beartown explores hope that brings a small community together, secrets that tear it apart, and the courage that it takes for an individual to go against the grain. This is one of my top favorite books ever. The way that Frederick Bachman writes, you get to know intimately and deeply and like fall in love with so many different characters in this small community. I'm not gonna lie, when you're first reading it, having all of the different points of views can be a little to keep up with. Who's Kevin over here? When I was just reading from Maya and Soon, and you'll figure it out, it'll be great. But I think the reason I love this book is because it really just shows humanity, I feel like, and it shows community in both the pros and the cons, the good aspects and the bad aspects of it. And it doesn't shy away from going deep into every character to where every character has some reason you love them and some reason you hate them, and it just feels so like real life. Real people, feels like a real setting, feels like a real event. I have not yet read the 3rd book in this trilogy, but that's one of my goals for heading into the new year. I will get to The Winners, which is the 3rd book. If you need to be convinced of how much I loved reading, this is the second one, Us Against You. You may remember this vlog, but I'll insert footage of me reading Us Against You. I feel like these books are not sad books, like despite me bawling my eyes out in that video. It's more just like you feel the feelings of all real life. Like you feel so happy, you feel so hopeful, you feel so like apprehensive, hoping things will go well. You feel disappointed in people. You feel like you wish you could make something better for a person. Like the way that he pulls on real life experience, top books. read them. Number 3 of my top books of 2023. These are in no specific order. It's not actually going number 1 to number 10. All 10 of these are the top books. But it's River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer. Her search begins with an ending. The master of the Providence Plantation in Barbados gathers his slaves and announces that the king has decreed an end to slavery. As of tomorrow, the Emancipation Act of 1834 in Barbados will come into effect. So as you can imagine, people are thrilled. Slavery has ended. Slaves are free. But the cries of joy fall silent when he announces that they are no longer his slaves, but they are his apprentices and no one can leave. They must work for him for another 6 years. Freedom is just a name for the life that they have always lived. So Rachel, our main character, runs. Away from Providence, she begins her desperate search to find her children, the 5 who survived birth and at various points in their lives were sold and taken away from her. Are any of them still alive? Rachel has to find out. The grueling, dangerous journey takes her from Barbados deep into the forests of British Guiana and finally across the sea to Trinidad. She is driven on by the certainty that a mother cannot be truly free without knowing what has become of her children, even if the answer is more than she can bear. These are the stories of Mary Grace, Micah, Thomas Augustus, Cherry Jane, and Mercy. But above all, this is the story of Rachel and the extraordinary lengths a mother will go through to find her children and thus her freedom. Number 1, this cover is beautiful. Number 2, the story is beautiful. Again, the way it just takes you so deep into humanity and into people's feelings and their choices and their journeys and their desires and what will ultimately fill them up. If historical fiction is not something that you typically read, I think this one still could be a very beneficial story. I mean, it takes place in Barbados in 1834, so it is quite historical, almost 200 years ago. But this is a great book for someone looking to learn a little, looking to follow a journey, looking for a story about love in a family, and someone who is willing to bend reality a little bit. But I'll just leave it at that. Number 4 is a book you've definitely heard me talk about before, A Man Called Ova by Frederick Bachman. Oh my gosh, Frederick Bachman again. And this is the book that recently became a movie in the US called A Man Called Otto with Tom Hanks. My favorite short way to describe this book is that it's like if the montage in Up were a novel, but my longer way of describing this book is that it follows Ova, who is definitely the grumpiest man you'll ever meet. He's a curmudgeon with staunch principles, a strict routine, and a short fuse. He thinks himself surrounded by idiots, and people think he's bitter. However, Ova's little routine he's got going on comes to a screeching halt one day when his new neighbors move in. It's a chatty, cheerful couple and their 2 little kids who back their U-Haul into Ova's mailbox, which you can imagine how that goes down. The first impression we're making there. What follows is a funny and a heartwarming tale, including unkempt cat, unlikely friendship, and a community's unexpected reassessment of the one person they thought they had all figured out. I cannot explain to you how much I love this book. I think the movie was fine if you've read the book. It's fun to see it come to life if you've read the book, but the book is so much better. It has so much more depth. Obviously, it includes so many more scenes. Parts of it made me laugh out loud. There's some dark humor from Ova in this book. I'm gonna say this with all the books. That's why they made it into this video, but highly recommend. Read this book. Number 5 is Hold You Down by Tracy Brown. This book, oh my, it wrecked me. But I feel like it was such good writing. Like, books cannot get as deep into me as this book got if it wasn't as good of writing. This is not like a cheery, lighthearted read. This is another one of those, like, it is real life. You feel the ups and you feel the downs. And there are some high ups and there are some low down with these characters. It takes place in New York City in the late 1980s to early 1990s. Mercy and Lennox Howard have always just had each other. Growing up on the mean streets of Harlem with an absentee mother, now young, smart mothers, they are determined to survive New York City while raising their 2 sons who have bright futures in front of them. Mercy is the quiet, straight-laced hospital administrator struggling to make ends meet. She pours her heart into cooking and dreams of one day opening her own restaurant. Lennox is the diva, the wild child. She's looking for excitement and she's looking to make it big. Their sons, Dion and Judah, have been raised more like brothers than like cousins, forging a bond that is unbreakable. When Lennox heads down a path that she believes will bring success and power, it changes the entire course of her family's life forever. As a result of their mother's choices, Dion and Judah soon find themselves in uncharted territory. This is not a spoiler, it's just an aspect of the plot. There are portions of this book that include being incarcerated as a teenage boy, which some of you may remember if I don't mention it enough. I used to work in a juvenile detention center, and the clients that I had there, I hold so close, so deep in my heart. And not that this book was like any of their specific stories, but I feel like this book shows a picture into good people making bad choices, or even just like sticky situations that someone may find themselves in and not be able to climb their way out of. To me, this book, I just felt like held the stories of people that I hold so close to my heart and love so dearly. And I think that's why, like, it was hard to read. Like, it is deep, it is gritty, but it is so good. My Goodreads review for this book was, this 5-star makes me wonder if any other book has ever actually been 5 stars. stars. It's up there. It's up there. Number 6 on our list is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. I will admit, I gave this book 5 stars when I read it. I have not thought about it all too much since I read it, but I think it was the perfect book for what I needed when I was reading it. Can you stop a murder after it's already happened? Picture it's late October, it's after midnight, you're waiting for your 17-year-old son to return home. He's late. As you watch from the window, you see him start to walk down the street towards your house, but you realize that he's not alone. He's walking towards a man also on the street, and he's armed. You truly cannot believe it when you see him do it, but you watch your fun, life-loving, happy son kill a stranger right there on the street. You don't know who, you don't know why, you only know your son is now in custody and his future is shattered. Fall asleep that night in despair, but then you wake up and it's yesterday, and then you wake up again and it's the day before yesterday. Every morning you wake up a bit earlier, another day before the murder, with another chance to stop it. Somewhere in the past lies an answer, the trigger for this crime, and you don't have a choice but to find it. The twists in this book, jaw-dropping, caught me by surprise. I feel like the format of this book is just so unique that it was just so fun to read. Like the fact that it's time travel, but it's not just like Groundhog's Day over and over again. Like no, she's moving further back in the past every single time that she goes to sleep and wakes up. And it kind of starts unraveling. She's trying to figure out like what led to this event. In trying to find that out, she figures out a lot of other things that she never would have guessed are true. I loved it. I recommend it. Anna, these books all sound like they're gonna break my heart. Yeah, don't worry. Number 7, Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This one's a romance. Does that make it better? Macy is working hard as a pediatrics resident. She has an upcoming wedding to an older, rich man. She's keeping her head down and she's keeping her heart tucked away. But suddenly, one day, she runs into Elliot, the first and only love of her life. The careful bubble that she has constructed starts to dissolve. Once upon a time, Elliot was Macy's entire world until he broke her heart. Their happenstance run into each other in years from when they last seen each other is enough for Elliot to go and immediately break up with his girlfriend. Just by seeing Macy, he goes and breaks up with his girlfriend. This book is told in alternating points of views then and now. So we get to watch Elliot and Macy as teenagers, growing as friends, and then falling in love. But then we go to now, to where as adults, they're basically strangers until their chance reunion. Although their memories are obscured by the agony of what happened that night so many years ago, Elliot will come to understand the truth behind Macy's decade-long silence and will have to overcome the past and himself to revive her faith in the possibility of an all-consuming love. It was sweet. It pulled on your heartstrings. You fall in love with both characters, both Macy and Elliot. There's a little bit of suspense, a little bit of tension through the book as you're wondering what happened so many years ago that caused them to now be basically strangers in current day. And it was wonderful. Number 8 is The 3 Lives of Alex St. Pierre by Natasha Lester. Now, why maybe do you recognize the author's name, Natasha Lester? Oh, could it be because I never shut up about The Riviera House by Natasha Lester, my favorite book from last year that I need to do a reread of that one, to be honest. Could it be that? Yes, this is the same Natasha Lester. This is her release from 2023. She writes historical fiction, but with romance plot lines, a little bit of suspense thrown in there, and it just feels so real to where, I don't know, I feel like sometimes historical fiction can kind of feel like, the past. Whereas this one is like, oh, sweet girl. Like, I love getting to know Alex. I love getting to follow her life. So, what happened? Alex St. Pierre, an unforgettable name for an unforgettable woman. She grew up surrounded by Hollywood glamour, but as an orphan, never truly felt part of that world. In 1943, this is a World War II historical fiction, with World War II raging and men headed overseas to fight, she lands a publicity job to recruit women into the workforce. Her skills, persuasion, daring, quick-witted under pressure, catch the attention of the US government, and she finds herself in an even bigger assignment, sent to Switzerland as a spy. Soon, Alex is on the precipice of something big, very big, but how far can she trust her German informant? So we have that happening. We have a romance happening. We have Alex starting to work for the Christian Dior house happening. It's lots of like fashion and dresses, and it's just so immersive. Like, it's so immersive that I feel like when you're reading it, you just like become part of her world for a little bit, which I think is a very unique and fun experience to have as a reader reading a book. So I recommend it, read it. Number 9, The 5-Star Weekend by Ellen Hildebrand. Ellen Hildebrand is a top author. She's been in my top books since I guess I first read a book by her last year. So she's been in my top books last year and this year. Hollis Shaw's life seems picture perfect. She's the star of the popular food blog Hungry with Hollis and is married to Matthew, a dreamy heart surgeon. But after she and Matthew get into a heated argument one snowy morning, Matthew leaves her at the airport and is killed in a car accident. The cracks in Hollis's perfect life, her strained marriage, and her complicated relationship with her teenage daughter Caroline grow deeper. When Hollis hears about something called a 5-Star Weekend, where a woman invites her best friend from various different decades in her life, her teenage years, her 20s, her 30s, or 40s, Hollis decides to host her own 5-Star Weekend on Nantucket. We love a Nantucket setting. setting, but her weekend won't be the Hallmark movie that some may expect. Hollis's childhood friend Tatum invites Hollis's first love, Jack Finnegan, to spend time with them, stirring up old feelings. Meanwhile, Tatum is forced to play nice with Drew Ann, Hollis's best friend from college. Drew Ann's career as a prominent Chicago sports agent is on the line after comments about a client's mental health issues are misconstrued online. Brooke, Hollis's friend from their 30s, has just discovered that her husband is having an inappropriate relationship with a woman at his work again. She runs into an old friend, Electra, a troublemaker who has ousted Brooke from their mom friend group from back in the day, where Brooke and Hollis met years before. And then there's Gigi, a stranger to everyone, including Hollis, who reached out to Hollis on her blog. Gigi carries an unusual grace about her, and as it so happens, some secrets too. I feel like you could just tell from the vibes. It's like we're putting all of these players into this little weekend together, and we're gonna watch and see how it unfolds. I will say, despite the grief that Hollis is facing and that kind of things, this is not a heavy book. Like, it is fun. It is like, maybe not gossipy, but like that kind of feeling to where you're like, oh, Drew Ann said what? Like, Brooke, what are we doing? To where you just fly through it. And like I said, we love a Nantucket setting. The way that Ellen just like encapsulates the island is wonderful. I'm surprised they still haven't gone yet. Definitely want to do that. But that brings us to number 10, the last book in this recommendation video, which is Don't Believe It by Charlie Donlea. The Girl of Sugar Beach is the most watched documentary in television history. A riveting true life mystery that unfolds over 12 weeks and centers on a fascinating question. Did Grace Siebold murder her boyfriend Julian while on a spring break vacation? Or is she the victim of circumstance and poor police work? Grace has spent the last 10 years in a St. Lucian prison and reaches out to filmmaker Sydney in a last desperate attempt to prove her innocence. As Sydney begins researching, she uncovers startling evidence overlooked during the original investigation. Before the series even finishes filming, public outcry leads officials to reopen the case. Delving into Grace's past, Sydney peels away layer after layer of deception. But as she edges closer to the real heart of the story, Sydney must decide if finding the truth is worth risking her newfound fame, her career, and even her life. This was so fast-paced. I was so hooked. This is the kind of book that I would be like sneak reading. Like if we were going out to dinner or something, I would be like kind of pulling up my Libby on my phone, trying to get a few more pages in. Like the twist, I feel like if you like any kind of like true crime documentary or anything like that, this has elements of that feeling, and so it can be pretty fun too. I cannot emphasize enough how fast-paced this was, how interesting this was, how twisty this was, and how good it was. It was so good. So with that, I hope that you have 10 new books that you can add to your TBR for the new year. Like I said in the beginning, this is just day one of 7 days of uploads that I'm doing in a row and that I'm very excited for. These books are just so enjoyable for me to read this year, so I hope that they can bring you some joy as you read into the new year. Subscribe before you go. Don't forget to comment your own book recommendation, and I'll see you tomorrow.